guest with us here in the studios to discuss this issue, plus another guest who's with us via Zoom. Here, let's welcome Ife Adebayo, his Special Assistant on Innovation to the President. Ife Adebayo, pleasure to have you this morning.
Pleased to be here, sir.
Also here with us in the studios is Kamal Bakrin, his Technical Advisor to the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Pleasure to have you this morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
And also joining us via Zoom is William Suma, Senior Advisor and Program Manager, UNDP. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we listened to the background report there by our correspondent, but let's just get a sense of why this scheme has come on stream. And that's the question going to Ife Adebayo. Why are we having this Jubilee scheme for Nigerian youth?
So the Nigeria Jubilee Fellows Program is a work experience program, a work placement program. So you find that there are a lot of graduates who complain about organizations needing a certain level of work experience before you can get into the job market. And you also find organizations, private organizations, saying to you that we're not getting employable people. So that's why this program is targeting recent graduates, those who graduated not earlier than 2017, and who have completed NYSC, and places them in a 12-month work placement program where they can earn while they learn on the job. And then 20,000 of them every year for 5 years. So this provides opportunity for them to learn, also provides an opportunity for the private sector organizations to have required human resource that they need in the organizations. So after the 12-month period, as a graduate, you have some work experience that makes you more employable, or if you wish to go into your own private practice, gives you the necessary experience to set up your private practice.
Okay, thank you.
Is this another NYSC?
No, this is a post-NYSC program. So what you find is, firstly, this program brings on private sector in a way that the NYSC does not. So this program brings on the private sector as mentors, brings on the private sector as partners, financial partners, knowledge partners, training partners. While you find that the NYSC program is a program that sends you to places across the country for national integration, this program is a work experience program that places you in private sector organizations wherever you currently live.
Okay, Mr. Ife Adebayo, you've given us the opening salvo there. Kamal Bakrin, last week President Buhari officially flagged off the program, and it's targeted for the first time graduates alone. Like Kingsley said, is it another NYSC? Well, that's for you to answer. So how long would this program run?
Well, I believe, well, if I can provide a lot of the nitty-gritty details around the program, but I think in its current conception, it's supposed to be for an initial period of 5 years, after which, of course, it will be evaluated and, potentially maybe expanded, enhanced in any possible way, because as you very well know, the challenge of employment in Nigeria is one that is quite substantial. So, I believe, we're all very optimistic about this program. And if we gain the right level of traction and sort of like build a sufficient momentum, there's potential to, of course, then even scale it up even further as required. So,
yeah, I want to come back to Ife Adebayo. There are 20,000 Nigerians, young Nigerians, who graduated not earlier than 2017. In other words, these are persons who would have completed their NYSC by 2018. That's like 2-3 years ago. What disciplines are we looking at for eligibility in the scheme?
So the scheme is multi-sectoral. So it is we're going to have cover literally every discipline that you're going to look at, and also work with virtually every government agency that you're going to look at. So one of the key focus of the program is also that we're able to reach everybody, we're able to reach every state. When you look at the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, for example, and the role that they play in supporting the private sector across the country, they have contact with private sector organizations in virtually every state in this country. So it will be multi-sectoral, and it will reach every state in the country.
The portal was opened yesterday, precisely 7:24 p.m., if I'm correct. And is it a rush or is it a slow process? Do we have so many graduates applying for it now?
Within the first 1 hour of the portal opening, we had over 10,000 applications already. So I don't have the figures this morning because we'll have to check on that later. But we do have quite a number of applications, and as of yesterday, when I looked at the real-time data, we had over 120,000 visitors to the portal. So I think the interest from young Nigerians is pretty impressive.
Very impressive indeed.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's join William Suma, Senior Advisor and Program Manager for the UNDP, who is with us via Zoom. William Suma, once again, we welcome you to this conversation. What is the interest of the UNDP in this Jubilee Fellows program?
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I think for UNDP as the development agency of the UN system, we strongly believe that if Nigeria achieves its ambition and trajectory, addressing issues of youth unemployment will be critical, because not just from a youth perspective, but because this is the largest segment of the population, and them meaningfully participating in the social and economic development of the country will really position Nigeria on a pathway to achieve its potential. So for us, as a development agency of the UN, it is the Jubilee Fellows Program basically provides a very natural vehicle to contribute towards this intent.
And what do you intend? It's a 5-year program we hear. And what do you intend, the UNDP, the collaboration between the UNDP and Nigeria, what do you think will happen in 5 years? So, I mean,
at the end of 5 years, what our expectation would be is that the Jubilee Fellows Program, as a proof of concept, will hopefully become the mainstay of the learning to earning model for the country, where every young Nigerian who graduates out of university is provided with a platform to become a meaningful participant in the labor market. So that is extremely critical. But I think already, as Ife mentioned, and as our colleague from the Ministry of Trade and Industry mentioned as well, this is an opportunity to really connect local Nigerian talent and demonstrate that there are opportunities here in Nigeria, and that with each and every cohort, what we are also in the Jubilee Fellows Program does is employing talent that both private and public sector can tap into. And we all know that can make moving forward.
All right, thank you very much, Suma. Back again to Kamal Bakrin of MITI. What is the role of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment in this?
Thank you very much again. So I think to properly situate the role of MITI in all of this, it's important to first of all understand MITI's overall mandate. If you think about it from that point of view, MITI has an overarching mandate to diversify Nigeria's economy, primarily to achieve a growth in the economy, bring about job-led growth, and create wealth for the country. It does this around essentially about 4 platforms. So it seeks to create an environment to attract investments, both local and foreign. It seeks to position Nigeria as the most favorable trading nation in Africa and in the world as a whole. And of course, it's positioned to drive industrialization, again, job-led industrialization for the country. And the 4th platform being the development of small and medium-scale enterprises, which, as you know, there are over 40 million of those in Nigeria. So if you look at that context, and also MITI's targets, which include the fact that within the 4 years of this administration, the target of MITI is to create 1 million manufacturing jobs, for example, to generate about $10 billion of exports for the country, to generate about over $6 billion of foreign direct investments. So if you look at all of these things, you can see that, first of all, we're at MITI. MITI is naturally motivated to be part of this program, which creates a lot of jobs. But specifically, what can we add to this? And this you can best understand when you look at the composition of MITI as a ministry. Probably without any doubt, it is the one ministry that has the most points of contact with the private sector. How do you understand this? Look at the agencies, for example, and the departments within MITI. So if you think about the Corporate Affairs Commission, for example, which every company that is formalized in Nigeria would have had to go through CAC to register. So you can imagine the kind of database and access that creates. The Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, which itself, sort of like oversees the 40 million MSMEs that I mentioned earlier. So again, look at that kind of vast. The Nigerian Investment Promotion Council, which sort of like drives sort of foreign direct investments in Nigeria, as well as creating an enabling environment for this. I could go on and on. The Standards Organization of Nigeria. So in terms of points of contact with the private sector, it is absolutely unrivaled. There's so many opportunities. So MITI is able to bring all of that to bear to this partnership. Just that unprecedented access, understanding the private sector needs. We have, for example, Industrial Training Fund also within it, and so on and so forth. So it's able to bring a lot of that to bear into this partnership, and we're looking to put that at the disposal of the Jubilee Fellows program.
That's a good one, and it's a fresh one from the stable of the FG. And Mr. Efe, what are the sectors that are of interest in these programs, and what options do these young graduates have? I say it's 30 years old and not above that. With insistent strike action in Nigeria, a lot of our graduates have been in school until they've passed that 30 years. Shouldn't there be a consideration for this kind of graduates too? Should there be an age limit to the applicants?
Thank you very much. This is a question that we've gotten consistently. But when you look at the program, I'll respond first to your question on the sectoral segmentation. So when you look at the way the program has been structured, it's been structured in a way that it takes into consideration virtually every discipline, virtually every expertise within the country. But what we've also done is we've sort of segmented the various sectors of the economy, and we're working with the Ministry of Trade and Investment, engaging with different private sector entities, such that when you apply for a job, when you apply on the program, you're able to decide what sector you want to work in, and then we're able to match you accordingly. And then when you're matched, the private sector organization is able to interview you and then make up their minds on whether they want to take you on the program or not, which then sets you on the path to becoming a fellow. And when you look at the age and the year of graduation restrictions, it's because we're looking at taking maximum advantage of the focus on young, recent graduates who require work experience. So what you find is, for most of them who are over 30, for example, who are just getting out of uni, you find that they've been able to get some work experience somewhat in the process. But for the younger ones, this has been one of the biggest worries, one of the biggest complaints, to say to you, well, I've been out of school for 2 years, I've been out of school for 1 year, I've not been able to get an opportunity to get relevant work experience.
I'm tempted to still stay with you, Ife Adebayo. Tell us, when the scheme was being conceived, what was the information or notion regarding the so-called unemployability of Nigerian graduates? In other words, why is it often said that Nigerian graduates are not employable?
One of the key factors in employability is on-the-job experience. So what you find is that a lot of private sector entities complain of a mismatch between education and industry needs. And I think there are a lot of activities going on in the Ministry of Education to actually mitigate these issues. And you also have the ITF, the Industrial Training Fund, doing a lot around student internships, student to then IT during their education. But while all those are going on, this is also an additional way to also support that in a way that you're able to get graduates out of school, you're able to give them on-the-job experience, they're able to earn while they're going through that learning process, that physical hands-on learning process, and then graduate them into a pool of graduates that are more employable and ready to take on opportunities available.
You know, Kamal Bakrin, I would like you to also respond to this. Happily, Ife has mentioned the ITF, and we have also asked the question, which disciplines will be eligible for this interaction, for participation in this scheme. The Industrial Training Fund was established for industrial work experience by students. That's why it's called CWES. That is Student Industrial Work Experience Scheme. Has there been a proper evaluation of that scheme? Is the scheme still working or is the scheme failing? As we speak, there are scores of IT students, as you call them, who work here at the NTA headquarters from time to time. And they come from different schools. I mean, you apply and, of course, you get shortlisted and then you get engaged. And I believe it's the same thing. When I was a student myself, I had industrial work experience for 2 years. Now, is it that that scheme is failing to now say that students are not, graduates are not employable because they lack work experience? I'm saying it because I'm sure you must have heard this, that one of the complaints of job seekers, there's another class, of course, that they say, look, these ones, they're looking to create their own jobs. Mm-hmm. But job seekers, they will be saying that you are asking them, or employers are requiring them to have experience before they get engaged. How would they get that experience when they have not been engaged in the first instance?
So thank you. Let me flip it around very quickly and play the interviewer. So how are your COS students performing?
Well, they're doing well.
Fantastic.
And they get disciplined, you know, on the job. That's to say that you have an indication of how it operates. If you are in the newsroom, you have interaction between the newsroom and operations. That is if you are studying mass communication. Sure. Those who are in engineering, of course, are also having the opportunity of getting to see the engineers, whether domestic satellite or the other connecting links. Television is a complex operation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
No, thank you. I was just being a bit facetious by trying to play the interviewer for a change.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yes.
So no, but on a very serious note, without a doubt, look, what one has to realize. So, for example, something like the ITF is. There is, of course, the overall goal of the ITF. By the way, it is by far not limited to the CWES program. I will speak to a number of other things that the ITF does. It's actually has quite a very wide mandate of basically just producing sort of like skilled labor for industry. There's a broader mandate, which we can talk about in a bit more detail. But again, you have to recognize that there is, without a doubt, a significant resource constraint. If you think about how ITF is funded, for example, you know, it's a contribution from corporate bodies and so on and so forth, because of course you have to fund people when they're in training and what have you. And so the resources are somewhat limited given the scale of the challenge that we have. I mean, we're talking about a country of 200 million people, you know, or people of a working age of like 100 million and so on and so forth. So you can begin to imagine the scale of the challenge. So it's not so much about the quality of the program, but in terms of the resources available to actually execute at the scale that is required. So that's one thing, and we continuously have to keep thinking about how do we enhance these resources, you know, to be able to. And by the way, compliance is also not 100% in terms of people actually contributing to ITF. So that's also a significant challenge. It's just people actually contributing what they are supposed to train tomorrow's labor force. As you would think that this should be something that people will be eager to do without turning around and complaining. But so there's that challenge of just being able to get sufficient resources to run it. And the gentleman there, Sir Joseph Ari, is doing a great job of running that particular organization. You know, but so there's that factor. It has a much broader mandate, as I mentioned before. For example, it does a lot of entrepreneurial training because it's not everybody that is going to get work. So it does a lot of vocational training that enables people to actually come out and set up businesses of their own from day one, and so on and so forth.
Will there be starter packs or something?
Oh, absolutely. So they at the end of the training, they provide starter packs. You know, so I personally know of people, for example, who have gone through their sort of like dressmaking program, and then they're given like a sewing machine at the end of it. They're trained both in terms of the technical aspects of it, as well as training around how to manage a business and keep your books and all things like that. And by the way, it's not limited to ITF alone. As I mentioned before, we also have SMEDAN. And then you also have, of course, the MSME clinics, you know, that are also a major program. I'm sure they've been on this show at different times to speak about the MSME clinic. So there's quite a number of these things. But the takeaway at the end of the day is just the kind of resources that is required, given the scale of the challenges we have, is quite significant. So we continuously advocate for attracting additional resources to this, as well as to see whether we can have our partners, I mean, which is why having the likes of UNDP participate in something like the Jubilee Fellows program becomes very important, because we just really need to bring a lot of resources to bear to this, while of course also continuously checking that it is fit for purpose, as you absolutely pointed out. So in summary, it is working, but it needs to be sufficiently resourced.
Indeed, the fellow.
What is it now? Is it we say
no,
it is? What does the program
various
refer to?
programs, including the CWES program under the ITF and the other things it is doing, require significant resources, as well as the other, you know, the MSME clinics, the likes of SMEDAN and so on and so forth.
Part of the reason why I raised the question is ITF is an established institution. I don't know the role of the ITF in this Jubilee Fellows program. In other words, I mean, if this is a program in the presidency, and as you very well know, it's a 5-year program, what institutional experience is being tapped to ensure that this functions well?
Excellent question. That is precisely the role. That is why the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is such a critical partner to all of this. You know, if you recall at the beginning, I talked about the agencies under the ministry that have such a strong touch point with the private sector. ITF is one of those. I mentioned SMEDAN, I mentioned ITF, CAC, and so on and so forth. So in terms of that training, as well as job placement and what have you, ITF has a huge database, you know, of potential takers of, you know, labor and so on and so forth, which it is going to put at the disposal of this program, as well as the other agencies within MITI. So, yeah.
Indeed, since the inception of this government, a lot of programs have been rolled out for youths, you know, women, and out there. Mr. Efe, we have 36 states and the FCT participating in this program. What is the kind of synergy you have with the states?
So I'm not sure I understand what you mean by synergy. But
what kind of, you know, connectivity do you have with them, and how would the states key into this program itself? That's what I'm asking.
So one of the key considerations in the design of the program was on equity, which is looking at distribution across every state and the FCT to ensure that every state gets an equitable number of participants on this program. Then taking into consideration population densities, we will then have certain states which will get some additional numbers. When you look at a state like Kano, a state like Lagos, a state like Rivers, a state like Enugu, they have larger numbers of people, higher population density, they will then get some additional numbers. But it will be equitably distributed. One of the things that the program has also done over time is engagement directly with the private sector. So while we were designing the program, there was a lot of meetings and conversations with certain groups. So you have the various associations that the various groups are under. And like Mr. Barkin had mentioned, engaging with SMEDAN and the likes with their own database of companies and organizations that are spread across the country, just to ensure that there is a reach, because what you find is there are unemployed graduates everywhere in the country. And at the same time, there are private sector organizations everywhere in the country looking for people who can work for them and gain relevant experience. So we'll be able to merge both, match them wherever they are, and provide the opportunities for both.
What happened to states with peculiar situations like Borno, the Northeast, and especially, are they put into consideration with special, you know, incentives for them?
So what you find is that there are a lot of these. I mean, there are a lot of these states that have these peculiarities. What you find also is that there are still a lot of opportunities even within these states. I remember when we were going to start the Empower program, for example, one of the key criticisms that we got was, oh, how are you going to do this in Borno? Well, we're able to show even to the lawmakers from those areas that there are people from every local government within your state that are engaged actively on this program and working on this program. And I believe it's going to be the same with the Jubilee Fellows.
So, the question my colleague Jume asked about synergy, it's important against the background of part of your earlier explanation to the effect that the fellows will have placement in both the private and public sectors. And because placement in the public sector would not necessarily all be in Abuja, where you have the federal government, or in federal secretariats throughout the states of the federation. There's a presumption, I believe, that there could be engagement with the state governments. That's to say, in the public service of the state governments. Are the state governments aware of this? And how enthusiastic are they in terms of reception?
Yes, so part of the engagement process has been an engagement with a lot of the state governors and a lot of their relevant ministries. A lot of them have provided linkages to their ministries of labor. And we're still, these consultations and these engagements are ongoing. For example, one of the planned engagements is at the National Economic Council, chaired by the Vice President with all the state governors, where this program will be officially presented to them now as a program that has been launched by Mr. President, and then engagement with the various public sector organizations in this state. But also importantly, we're looking at engaging in public sector organizations that can provide specific relevant experience. Like I had mentioned in NTA, where there's this variety of options for people to learn. And I think we'll be looking at states and encouraging them to put people in specific sectors where they can have hands-on experience, daily hands-on experience.
I'm still staying with you briefly. What are the specific requirements? Because I'm sure a lot of youths are watching us now and listening to know, what do they need to apply? What do they require to apply? Apart from NYSC certificate and being a graduate, what else?
So to apply, you must be 30 years old or below. You must have graduated not earlier than 2017. You must have concluded the NYSC program, and you must have had a minimum of a 2-2 graduation with a BSc or HND, a BSc equivalent from a higher institution of learning. And you also need to have a valid ID. You need to have your NYSC district certificate and your university certificates on hand while you're doing the application. So that's pretty all you need.
So anybody with a third class is practically out of the program?
Why?
Why?
So the program, like I said, was designed in active consultation with the private sector. And these are some of the requests that were made by persons from the private sector. But it's also important to understand that, firstly, this program is going to give us a lot of data. Every year we'll have to review, we'll have to look at what has been done right, what do we think can be done better. But also, very key, like Mr. Barkin had mentioned, this is one program out of numerous government programs. So what you find is, when Mr. President promised he's going to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years, we're laying the
amongst
foundation.
those 100 million Nigerians are graduates who have past degrees and third-class degrees. So why the discrimination against them? Come on. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm not jumping into you. I know you are explaining. You know, why the discrimination? Why don't you just say graduates? This is part of the challenge that young persons face in accessing jobs. Some jobs you apply for, they will say minimum 2-1, and you must not be older than 27 years. Here now, this is a government-backed scheme, and you're saying not older than 30 years, which is fine, because above 30 you can't do NYSC in the first instance. And then you are saying not less than a 2-2. So we have a major challenge with exam malpractices, so-called sorting and blocking, where everybody is desperate to say you must earn at least a 2-2, because that is the So what, among 100 million Nigerians who want to lift out of poverty, there are people who have passed degrees. There are people who have third class. Some of them can then supplement it later by going for postgraduate diploma courses.
Fantastic point, without a doubt. Absolutely fantastic and a valid point, without a doubt. But we must go back to a point Ife made. We're doing this in partnership with the private sector. You cannot mandate, to them, to people who want to take on labor participate in the program that no, you must take a pass. It may very well be that for the sort of roles they want these people to play, it just doesn't work. So one has to take that into cognizance. Having said that, we all know that it does not mean therefore, we're talking about 20,000 in a country that produces, I can't remember the number now, easily 500,000 or graduates every year. So if you think about it from that point of view, it is just part of solving a larger, sort of like tackling a larger challenge. Okay, so if you have to think, there are other things where, there are other initiatives and other programs where this doesn't apply. You understand what I'm trying to say? For example, there's a lot of the vocational training and sort of like entrepreneurial readiness and what have you programs that government runs, ITF, SMEDAN and what have you. They don't have these requirements. A lot of sort of the loan facilities provided for entrepreneurs by the BOIs and the Bank of Industry and so on and so forth, they don't say, oh, you have to have a 2-1 or this or that, because those recognize that an entrepreneur is not, it's determined by whether you graduated with the first class or what have you. It's just what you can do. So there are a lot of other programs that tackle, back to what Madam Hawa was saying, that someone can have a third class and be absolutely fantastic at whatever they do. So there are other avenues where this can sort of like be brought to bear, and they can then sort of like fulfill their own potential without necessarily being through the Jubilee Fellows Program, which is one out of several things that can potentially be done. That can happen. And of course, as time goes on, as the program expands, it may then become obvious. So for example, there are fields like IT and what have you, where nobody really cares whether you have a first or a third case.
That is what is moving the world now.
So by the time it comes to that,
is a school dropout.
There you go. So by the time we start like sort of like the business process outsourcing businesses, which are beginning to come up in the country, which has huge potential, as you said, in spite of the whole IT ecosystem. By the time you start getting to that area, you may not even care whether somebody is a university graduate or not. You will be begging people because of what they can do with their hands, and all of these will come. But so this is a pilot, which is going to sort of like proof of concept, as the gentleman from UNDP mentioned, and then we'll continue to expand, refine, and improve on it.
It's a working process.
It is absolutely a working process.
In progress.
All right. Thanks, Kamal.
You were talking about the, excuse me,
yeah, go ahead.
Talking about the private sector. How did you get them to key into this initiative?
Okay, again, I think Ife is closer to the sort of the process of that, and he started talking about the whole process of consultation, because they also need the talent. They also need the, they need to employ people in a structured manner that have been screened and so on and so forth. They also, in their different ways, want to contribute to the development of this country. We have to remember that. It's not just about taking. A lot of them also want to give back. Many of them have their various corporate social responsibility programs. So this has essentially provided a platform for them to not only get employees, relatively, cost effectively, vetted, screened, and so on and so forth, but also an opportunity for them to also help to mop up a fair amount of the sort of like unemployed sort of graduates with a lot of potential in the country. But I think I'll let Ife expand maybe a bit more on that point.
Yeah, so just to expand and build on what he has said, what we've found is that the private sector interest has been amazing. For example, you have private sector organizations who have told us, we will give free work days for mentors to be on the program. So we're going to give people free holidays through the year. You can take 5 days off a year to mentor people on this program. We've had private sector entities who have told us we are willing to serve as the anchor for our sector, to bring everybody within our sector under one umbrella to be able to engage on this program so that you can get more numbers. We've had private sector partners who have said we're willing to be knowledge partners. We're willing to provide information, courses, programs that the fellows can learn while they're on the program. So the interest from the private sector has been really good. A lot of them have said to us, this program is long overdue, and we're willing to work with you.
Who is paying for this?
So it's a federal government partnership with development partners. So the funding to fund this proof of concept is driven mainly by support from the United Nations Development Program and the European Union. And there is some of the funding also from the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, which serves as Nigeria's own contribution to this program.
While I was doing my research yesterday, I tried to send a lot of youths I know out there the link so that they can apply. And some of them came back to me and said, Auntie J, how will I apply? I don't have a long leg. So how is this going to work out? How do you, tell the youth that you can just come on, apply, and if you have the requirements, you get it without knowing anybody, the Nigerian way anyway?
So I think for the first time since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999, I can confidently say the government of President Muhammadu Buhari is the first government that opened up a program for young people, that people got onto the program without having to know anybody. And this was the Empower program. And we have all the positive reviews all over the place. So I think Nigerians should have faith in this program. It's going to follow the same path. The program is being managed, while the federal government through the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment provides oversight over the program is being largely managed by the private sector. It will be based on merit. When you're matched with a company within your locality and you go for an interview, try your best to impress, because you will be competing against other people to get on the program. So you do not need to know anybody. All you need to do is ensure that you meet the necessary criteria and ensure that when you're matched, you're able to defend your credentials when you meet with your potential employer.
Come on.
Can I also, thank you very much. Can I also buttress that point about not needing to know anybody? I've also been part of one or two other similar programs like the MSME Intervention Fund, which we have the 75 billion naira MSME Intervention Fund that has about 3 or 4 legs in it. There are grants and so on and so forth. Again, a program involving about 500,000 small businesses across the country. One defining feature of it from the various testimonials across the country is the fact that you do not need to know anybody. There is no issue of you go on the portal, you apply. There has been no case of, I applied, I didn't get because I don't know anybody. There are rather lots of people said, I even just tried, I was skeptical. And next thing, I got a notification. They asked for more information, I provided it, and my account was credited accordingly. So I think it's a huge thing we need to recognize, the fact that we're moving away, and hopefully for good, from this issue of you have to know somebody to be able to get something in this country. And it's something we need to all come together to encourage and sustain in any way we can.
Okay. As with pre-existing schemes, will the fellows be on the salary or on the stipend?
Yes, there will be stipends that will be paid for the period of 12 months that each fellow is on the program.
How much is this?
I am not going to quote a figure, but it's substantially higher than what you earn as a corper. The conversations are still on, but it's definitely substantially higher than what you earn as a corper.
What if you're posted to another state or to another place, not where you are living in?
So what we've done also is provide the flexibility to select your top 3 destinations that you're interested in. So what we're going to see, hopefully, is that there are a lot of these graduates who are selecting spaces and states based on where they have an uncle or they have an auntie or they have a friend. But also, when you have graduates who, if a graduate just finished maybe from the University of Benin, for example, and you get a job in Akwa Ibom, for example, you will go to Akwa Ibom just to gain relevant work experience. So I think it's important that we place the importance of getting a job, the importance of taking the bull by the horn and doing what you need to do to get into the job market. I think we need to place this as a top priority.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's say you graduate from University of Benin and presumably you are from Edo State. and you have a job in Akwa Ibom, so you go ahead to Akwa Ibom to get a job. You will not be sleeping under the bridges. There are many flyovers now in Akwa Ibom. So with the stipend, pay your accommodation.
Or with the private sector, those
These are some of
employing
the practical issues
We
I
need
believe
to-
that people have to consider. I mean, it's something there, but let's come out. Let's bring this again. What is the relationship, if any, between the Fellows Program and End Power and End Health and all the other schemes? Over the years, we've had beneficiaries of End Power appear on Good Morning Nigeria, either live here or joining us from some of our network centers. So what is the relationship or similarity between those schemes and the Fellows Program?
Excellent question again. So I think the way to think about it, it's not so much in terms of whether they are linked, but two things that I think we need to highlight. One is how we are able to use the lessons, the learnings from these programs. Ife, I believe, was involved in Empower, for example, is being able to use these learnings that have been acquired from Empower, from MSME clinics, from MSME intervention fund, and whatever. There's a conscious effort, and there's a conscious effort to actually take a lot of those learnings and bring them. So every program you look and say, what did we learn from this? There's a lot of focus on the information gathered, the database developed from these other programs. How do we bring them and deploy them here to, instead of starting from scratch and trying to? So you find a lot of what around program design and program development these days. There's a lot of focus on previous databases. How can we use them? How can we deploy them, and so on and so forth. Then there's a broader issue. You can begin to see a trend. You can begin to see a theme. Okay, a conscious effort to pull people into the workforce in a productive, meaningful manner on an ongoing basis. If you begin to talk about Empower, begin to talk about market money and all these things, so there is that. So that is the sort of the nature of the linkage. So it's around, sort of like building on the knowledge base, as well as the thematic area of just continuously empowering people by bringing them to the workforce in a more structured manner.
What are some of those critical lessons from Empower that have informed, as it were, the design of the Fellows Program?
Thank you. So like you know, the Empower has been a very successful program. Mr. President recently gave the instruction to increase the numbers from 500,000 to 1 million, which the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs Ministry is working on. And I know that a couple of those 1 million new Empower intakes are about to be onboarded as we speak. So while that program is a broader, wider program, which is focused specifically on sectors, education, health, agric, within the country, and giving youth the opportunity all across the country in every local government to engage and work within these areas. What you find with the Jubilee Fellows Program is that this is the more private sector centric program. So you look at Empower more as a social intervention, while you look at the Jubilee Fellows Program more as a work placement, work experience program. I think those are the two similarities, or two ways you can look at both programs and look at how they feed from each other.
Sustainability is always an issue when it comes to implementation of initiatives like this. So what strategy are you putting in place to ensure that it is sustainable?
So everything is still anchored on government-private sector partnerships, which is why the Ministry of Trade and Investment was a critical partner that the UNDP had said they required to be on the program. So for sustainability, engagement with the private sector, I had mentioned earlier private sector entities who had said to us, we're willing to provide money to fund some of the fellows. We're willing to take on fellows and we pay their salaries. We're willing to provide mentorship. We're willing to provide knowledge support. So over the 5-year period, one of the key things that we'll be measuring is what is the input of the private sector? How can we ensure that there is a sustainable pipeline for this program?
When you talk about funding, money, what are we talking about here?
The key part of funding required is for the stipends, really, because what you find is every virtually every other part of the program is one that once you put in motion, runs by itself. But also when you want people to learn, you also want them to earn while they learn, so that they're able to focus on what they're learning, because then they can feed and they can transport themselves and they can provide accommodation for themselves, like has been mentioned earlier.
They can even get married that they do in NYSC camps too.
Well,
would it be enough?
You never know.
Well, if you have the resources to get married and then to sustain a family, you can proceed with it. Because I'm sure, I mean, Juma, you know that part of your assessment will be, is he ready to marry? When is the program taking off?
Yes.
So the application process for the program is currently ongoing. The applications are scheduled to close on the 20th of October, and after which the matching process will then take place between November and December. We expect the first cohort of fellows to be deployed by the 1st of January and then run for a period of 12 months.
So the portal will be open from when to when?
From September 6th, so it's currently open, to October 20th, 2021.
Okay, I still want to come back to Kamal. Again, in terms of institutional relationships, what is the role of the National Directorate of Employment in this scheme?
Yes.
Again, sorry, I have to be very honest, my focus has been on the meaty side of things. So to that extent, is much more focused on what we bring, as I said, because of this whole private sector.
Okay, let Ife take the question.
Yeah.
What is the relationship with the NDE, National Directorate of Employment?
So I think Mr. Bakrin actually made this point a while earlier, that we must not see one government program as a program that is all-encompassing with everything in government. The NDE under the Ministry of Labour has a lot of its own activities. We're a country of 200 million people. So the Jubilee Fellows Program is one intervention out of many. I'm sure the NDE has a lot of its own programs that they are running also, which also seeks to deal with the problem of unemployment and employability.
Well, thanks. The reason I asked the question is to say, what experience is the NDE availing you with in running this program? That's to say the Jubilee Fellows Program. When I asked about the ITF, is to say, what experience is the ITF obliging you with in conceptualizing and then getting to run with the Jubilee Fellows Program? It is not that one should not supplant the other, because these are pre-existing institutions. And one of the challenges that we often face is when programs get tied to administrations. By the time the administrations leave, those programs, virtually, that's again a sustainability point. It's important, you know. But I'm sure I don't know if you were around early on in the Fourth Republic. There was a program called YES, Youth Employment Scheme. Even though that program was heavily criticized because in some cases they were just doling out money. But after a while, it then started having, reconceptualization. That was you win. As recently, and you win. So some person will say, oh yeah, that was a success story. But you are not talking about you win today. You're talking about empower and so on and so forth. But there are institutional mechanisms recognized by law. And that's why I'm saying, what is the synergy? Where this is saying, look, what is ITF advising you on? What is ND advising you on? And so on and so forth. So, gentlemen, we're going to have to take a short break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
Since coming into office in 2015, the Buhari administration has recorded unprecedented achievements in all sectors, especially in the provision of infrastructure, which is the key to economic growth. Never in the history of this country has any administration done so much with so little. I recall that when this administration came into the office, the price of crude oil, which provides for 80% of Nigeria's budgetary revenues and 95% of foreign exchange earning, dropped drastically, thus reducing the amount of resources available to the federal government. In spite of this, the administration has continued apace with massive infrastructure developments.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Mommy is ready to receive me a bundle of joy. Mommy is making my home cleaner and safer. We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
Illnesses can happen at home too. That's why Dettol and me together will make my baby's home safe and to protect from up to 100 illness-causing germs. That's why moms want to be Dettol, Dettol Sure.
We are Dettol, Dettol Sure.
TV Guide is out exclusively with Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State.
Since assuming office, our rescue administration has pursued the path of peace and reconciliation and restored confidence among people of different ethnic, religious, and political persuasions. Peace is back on the plateau. We are building world-class infrastructure in roads and opening up opportunities for innovation.
The edition is a compendium of mind-blowing stories for your reading pleasure, ranging from entertainment, economy, sports, media, politics, family, and lots more. Pick up a copy and keep abreast with issues and trending features within our space. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
You're welcome back, and where our conversation is ongoing. We have our guest seated in the studio. Mr. Ife, since we've lost Dr. Suman, can you tell us what kind of support the UNDP is bringing into this program that will make it a success story?
So the UNDP, like you know, is a United Nations Development Program. So they have a lot of development activities that they've done all over the world. So they come with a lot of experience, they come with a lot of expertise, they come with a trove of knowledge from across the world, from other developing countries, but also they come with the convening power of the development partner community. They come with the convening power of various UN organizations, of the EU, of the US, of every other country that is interested in the development of Nigeria and is providing various levels of support. So they're able to converge everybody to the table. They're able to also bring government to the table and say, how do we work together to design and develop this program?
Well, funding, they said, is usually a major issue in the implementation of these initiatives, and there must be a model that you've sort of crafted that would be a lift up for this program. So what kind of model are you going to use to make sure it succeeds?
So we are firstly pulling together partners, like I had said, and ensuring that for every cycle, so for every year, before the cycle begins, the funds to run that full cycle is already made available. This is important because you need to ensure that when it's time to get paid, people are paid. Also, you need to ensure that you're also able to project and plan as the program runs.
What aspect of funding will UNDP bring to the table?
So the program is not being run on a divided funding model. It's being run on a full cost model, which will look at the program design, look at the program planning, look at the payment of stipends, look at monitoring and evaluation, impact assessment over time, and all these are things that the UNDP has experience in raising funds for.
Okay, thank you very much. Kamal Bakrin, back again to the role of MITI in all of this. What is the expectation of MITI and then the program managers to say, look, you are running your MSME clinics, you have SMEDAN, then of course you have the bigger industries. Which ones are the targets for placement of these fellows? Because some of them may have entrepreneurial disposition. Some others may say, look, I want to get into this kind of sector X, Y, Z. What would be your advice to potential fellows for this? And then, of course, for actual placement.
No, thank you again. I really appreciate these questions. The beauty of the MITI platform, as it were, is being able to provide a very wide range. So if people are interested in working for small companies, there's a massive database of such small companies that we will avail to the program. So there's that. If people are interested in larger enterprises, again, through the likes of Bank of Industry and a whole bunch of other means, we're able to provide that. And also not to forget that we do have the ministry itself directly gets a lot of direct approaches by industry players, large organizations, multinationals, local conglomerates, and so on and so forth, who come directly, to come and sort of like talk about their issues around, of course, the normal thing about access to foreign exchange and other things of doing business, but also issues around being able to access the right caliber of skills. They even approach us from time to time about potentially partnering with the ministry in terms of being able to upgrade the quality of labor and skills available. So, if you think about it from that point of view, there's such a wide range of possibility for, sort of like placement that suits people's sort of like career interests, sort of abilities and so on and so forth. So, that part of it for me is actually quite exciting.
Placement is very, very important too. Mr. Ife, is this program trying to encourage our young graduates to sort of move towards private sector and not wait for a white-collar job as it's usually done here?
So the program is one that will provide skills, but of course, beyond that, while you're also learning on the job, you also learn how an organization works, how your industry works. Back to the Empower program, for example, when we did an impact assessment in 2019, we found that more than 70% of the people who were on Empower had started one form of business or the other. Some started, lesson teaching businesses, some started fisheries, some started, like there are these two ladies in Delta who realized in their health center, women had to go about an hour away to do basic tests, and they contributed from their monthly stipends. They bought the necessary equipment required and were providing these tests within those organizations. So the young Nigerians have shown consistently that they're able to be flexible, they're able to take advantage of opportunities given to them, and we're confident that this program will also provide such opportunities.
It has also provided a breather, I think, since the COVID-19 pandemic has sort of impacted much on our youth. What do you want to see going forward with the implementation of this scheme?
What I want to see, what we hope to see as government, and I think what the UNDP is also looking forward to seeing, is the learnings. What do we need to do? What do we need to change? What is the private sector saying to us? Are they saying to us this program is good? We need to expand it from 20,000 to say 200,000. Are they saying to us we need to intensify the program, extend the timing, reduce the timing? So it's a learning process for us on the program, and we're hoping that the program sets the foundation for us to be able to get our young people into jobs and also to grow private sector enterprises across the country.
Good. Thank you very much. Kamal, some years ago, the NYC became a source of cheap labor, particularly for the private sector. So year in, year out, they would make their request to the NYSC and say we need so many core members to come and serve with us. So as you come, you go, you come, you go, you come, you go. There's no retention, or very little retention is going on. Until the NYSC, on its own, then started saying, no, of course, we will not be sending core members to certain organizations for a period of time. How do we avoid that kind of exploitation in this scheme? Because if it is intended for 5 years, a smart organization can say, well, okay, we need this kind of manpower at this level, apply to IFE and say, yeah, well, this is what we need extra, let people apply to us. We get them on, they come, they do 1 year, and as before the 1 year ends, we're applying again to say this time we need 10, X, Y, Z. In the meantime, those guys, the fellows would have concluded their programs and left, but you have a steady supply of cheap labor. How do we avoid that exploitation?
Okay. Again, I'll allow you to talk more, but there are two things that I think is worth highlighting there. There is a retention component. There's a retention sort of target around the program as well. It is expected that, there's an understanding that there will be a retention component. It will not be 100%, I mean, as is understandable, because it is a development program, it's a training program, and so on and so forth, so it cannot be 100%. But there is built into the program a retention component to it, which I guess, if I can speak to a bit more. But also, I think, is that we must not underestimate that development part of it. A major part of that thing is to ensure that, it equips these young people with skills and abilities to be able to function, that makes them marketable, that makes them, transferable skills, and so on and so forth. So we should not underestimate the importance of that, which you can take away to go and do other stuff anyway. So again, not absolutely in any way to belittle NYSC, but you can see from the design of this program that it is very much more focused on training people to be able to do work, as opposed to just providing labor to an organization to use as you want, in a sense. So there is a development component to it, and also a retention component to it, which will largely address those concerns.
Mr. Ife, can you comment on that?
Yes, and just to build on that also, the selection process is also critical to this. While you're sent a copper and you have to take on the copper, in this case, you're actually allowed to interview, you're allowed to determine the skill sets that you require, and before you take people on. So we expect retention to be much higher. We've also seen that a lot of the private sector organizations that we've engaged with are very specific on the numbers that they want. And one of the things that we've also said to them is that we're hoping this program does not replace your usual employment. It's supposed to be an add-on to your usual employment. So if you're employing 10 people every year before, this should help you get an additional 5 people, making it 15. And then hopefully they are useful within your organization, and then you'll be able to retain them after the program.
Okay, as a youth yourself, and I'm sure you've had a lot of interaction with youth across the country, what is the response like to this fellowship?
The response has been really amazing. My phone is blowing up with people seeking more information. But the beauty of the program also is every information you need is on the website. So what I usually say to people who ask me about the program, just go to the website, and there's a frequently asked questions section on the website where you can get every information you need on the program. If you have any issues on the program, there are the contact links on the program for you to engage with, and you will be helped through the application process.
So I get enrolled on the Jubilee Fellows program, take off January 1st, 2022. Presumably by the 31st of December, 2022, I'm out. What happens to me thereafter?
There are different exit pathways. One exit pathway, like Mr. Bakri mentioned, is retention within your organization if you've proven yourself worthy. Another exit pathway is that you now have relevant work experience, you're able to look for jobs, A third exit pathway is that you've gained experience on how to do the job, but you've also understood better how an organization works, and you decide to become an entrepreneur and set up yours. So those are the three core exit pathways that we're looking at for the program.
And like the NYC signs people and they are rejected, are we going to see something like that with this scheme?
So private sector organizations are allowed to determine who they want on the program. But we also have a wide enough pool of graduates that we're sure that we will be able to find the right persons for these private sector entities. And we're also working to ensure that we get enough private sector partners on board to ensure that we're able to give up to 20,000 young people an opportunity to be engaged.
As a woman, I want to know, is there a special, incentive for women as part of encouragement for them to come out, key into this scheme and be part of it?
So gender balance has been one of the key designs of the program. So we've designed the program in a way that we ensure that there is gender balance, a minimum of 50-50, and there is also provision for persons with disabilities to also get on the program and be employed.
All right, Mr. Kamal Bakrin, again, what should we expect from MITI in leveraging this program, and what should potential fellows also do in the event of any issues arising from any of the linkages that MITI might provide or the program managers might provide?
Thank you. So, I mean, from the MITI perspective, definitely providing that whole knowledge base of information around potential partners who are what they're looking for in terms of skills and all of that, we will be providing. In terms of what the there is a whole remediation process again that is built into this whole scheme that allows, that will minimize any sort of like issues around, even the issue of people being rejected. It will be minimized because there's going to be a thorough screening process. It's not just a blind posting of people all over the place. So I would rather strongly encourage young people to come on board this program. At the same time, also very strongly encourage corporate Nigeria to very quickly get on board this program, because a lot of people complain about not being able to access skilled manpower. Both local and international companies complain about not being able to. And this is an absolutely fantastic opportunity for them to be able to key into that. So it's a very, very strongly mutually reinforcing opportunity that, in my own view, this 20,000, I don't even see it as something that will run for the 5 years. I foresee a situation where it will very quickly scale up before the 5, knowing what I know about the sort of like the skills challenge in the country. I see this as something that's going to ramp up a lot quicker than that, but I'm not speaking on behalf
Mr. Ife, what's your message to potential fellows?
So it's a dual message. One message to fellows: get on the program if you meet the criteria. Apply when you're matched to an organization. Make sure you prepare yourself very well as you go for your interviews. And also to private sector organizations, we need you on board the program. We need you not just as host organizations, we need you as mentors, we need you as knowledge partners, we need you as learning partners. So I'd like to encourage private sector organizations to also get on the program.
Okay.
Well, I know that you just might say this is part of the process. We've had interactions with some private sector persons in the past. I have a private sector experience myself, and the general complaint often had to do with the so-called soft skills. And I'm wondering, because you say if you are shortlisted, prepare yourself for the interview, and that's where the challenge sometimes arises, that interview process. Is there going to be an orientation program before these fellows, no matter, how rudimentary, to just get them to say, look, you're going for this exercise, just a talk before you put them out there to get face-to-face with potential employers.
So there will be an induction process. So this induction process, of course, is going to involve some testing, and it's also going to involve some provision of some specific information and some specific information, basically, before you go out there. But while on the program itself, there is also the learning component. So if you're on the program, there will be specific learning modules which you will have to go through at the end of the program, because this is supposed to be a program you're supposed to learn while you earn. So beyond your work, you must work with your mentor, so there will be the mentorship program that you must be a part of, and there will be learning modules that will be compulsory for every member of the program.
Ife Adebayo, Special Assistant on Innovation to the President, thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. We indeed appreciate your contribution. Kamal Bakrin, Technical Advisor to the Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment. Thank you so much for your input. And we're sorry we also lost Dr. William Suma, Senior Advisor and Program Manager, UNDP, in the course of the conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Sports Update.